the graveyard that brings things back. When Jonah came back to town, the cemetery was the first place he walked to. The iron gate hung crooked, its latch eaten by rust. The maples leaned like old men listening for a secret. People said the place had a habit, an old, whispered thing, that it returned what it had taken. Jonah had laughed at the stories once. He had not laughed when he found the small wooden cross with his sister's name half buried beneath ivy. He knelt and brushed the moss away. The letters were soft under his fingers, as if the wood remembered being carved. He had not been here in 10 years. He had not wanted to be. The air smelled of wet earth and something sweeter, like the sugar of a childhood candy. A moth the size of his palm beat itself against the cross and then, impossibly, straightened and flew away as if it had been waiting for permission. At first, the returns were small and harmless. A bouquet of dead daisies on a grave lifted its heads and brightened, petals unfurling with a sound like paper being smoothed. A rusted wind chime began to sing, though no wind moved. Jonah watched a coin on a headstone roll and stop at his shoe, as if someone had set it there for him. Then the laughter started. It was a thin, high sound that threaded through the stones. Jonah froze. The sound belonged to a child. He had not heard a child laugh in this town since the summer before the accident. He followed the sound between graves, past names he knew and names he did not, until he found a small patch of disturbed earth where the grass had been trampled into a shallow bowl. A little boy sat there, knees tucked to his chest, hair plastered to his forehead with rain. He looked up at Jonah with eyes too bright for the gray day. "You came back," the boy said, and his voice was the exact timbre of Jonah's memory of his sister when she was 6 and dared him to jump from the porch. Jonah's throat closed. He had come to say goodbye, to stand over the place where he had failed to keep her alive. He had not expected a child to answer him. He reached out, and the boy's hand was cold and dry, like a leaf. "You shouldn't be here," Jonah said. The words felt foolish. The boy smiled, and the smile was not his sister's, but a mimicry of it, too wide, too quick. Around them, the cemetery breathed. The headstones leaned a fraction, as if listening. Things came back in pieces. A dog that had been buried in the spring rose from its grave and padded past Jonah, tail wagging though its ribs showed too plainly beneath its skin. A woman's scarf, folded on a stone, lifted and wrapped itself around a lamppost, fluttering like a flag. Voices threaded through the trees, snatches of conversations, names called into empty rooms. They were not whole people. They were echoes stitched into flesh and fabric, animated by something that wanted to be remembered. Jonah thought of the bargain towns make with memory. We keep the dead in tidy boxes of story, so we can sleep. This place did not keep them tidy. It returned them raw, hungry for the small, living things they had lost. The boy's eyes tracked Jonah's face with a hunger that was not for food. "Do you want to go home?" Jonah asked, because the question felt like a rope. The boy tilted his head. "I already am," he said. "You're the one who left." Jonah's knees gave. He had left. Left the hospital corridor, left the apology unsaid, left the town to rot with its secrets. He had thought absence would be a kind of mercy. The graveyard did not grant mercy. It offered a ledger. Around him, the returned gathered like a congregation. They did not speak to each other. They watched Jonah as if he were the last page of a book they had been waiting to finish. The moths clustered on his jacket, their wings whispering like pages. The boy's hand found Jonah's, and it was colder than the stone beneath them. "You can stay," the boy said. "They always stay." Jonah tried to pull away, but the ground under his palms was soft and giving. Roots curled like fingers. The soil smelled of rain and of the sweet, rotten thing that comes when something is called back before it is ready. He felt a tug at his chest, a small, insistent pull, as if the cemetery wanted not only to return what it had taken, but to keep what it could still borrow. He thought of the cross with his sister's name, of the coin at his shoe, of the laughter that had sounded like forgiveness and like accusation. He thought of leaving and of the way the town had folded him into its quiet, careful forgetting. The boy smiled, and Jonah understood the last, terrible courtesy of the place. It did not resurrect to heal. It resurrected to remember, and remembering is a hunger that never stops. When Jonah opened his mouth to say no, the sound that came out was not his voice. It was a small, bright thing that belonged to someone else. The cemetery closed around it like a mouth. The iron gate swung shut behind him with the soft, final click of a latch. If you enjoyed this story, remember to like and subscribe to the Nightmare Orchard for updates to new content.